Story 1 by Reddit user Snail Softer. Part 1. Last night, I fell asleep at a normal time for myself around 12 or 1 a.m., although I had been trying to sleep since 10:30 or so. I had some domestic stresses on my mind regarding a heated argument I had with my father earlier in the day. I had some concerns with my safety because my father is what many would call an introverted sociopath, and he has a history of irrational behavior when drunk and angry. With these stresses on my mind, I decided to take a dose of my sleeping meds that was on the high side of my prescription range and forced myself to go to sleep. I woke up many times in the night, tossing and turning, but was able to get some rest for a bit before the episode. Part 2. Sometime in the early morning, I awoke on my side, facing the door parallel to my bed, and immediately sensed something was off. Then, as if it were crouched by my bed, a dark humanoid figure rose and stood over it. I waited to see what business this person had in my room, as I wasn't entirely sure if it were my dad or someone else. It was then that I felt a shift of weight on my bed, as if whoever it was had put their knee on the edge of it. I heard the bed strain as the figure shifted more of its weight on it. I finally lost the last straw when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I strained my arm to try and push the chest of the figure, but I had not regained the strength of my arms. I mumbled as I attempted to shout, "Get off," and "What are you doing?" I began to regain more and more strength until finally I pushed my hand right where the figure was standing and said in an audible volume, "What are you?" But before I finished my sentence, I realized that I was propped up in my empty room talking to nobody. I promptly regained my thoughts, then went back to sleep. The whole episode probably lasted a total of 10 to 15 seconds, and I had no memory of it upon waking at 9 in the morning. It wasn't until about 1 hour ago at 12 p.m. that I remembered what was so odd about last night. Part 3. I believe this episode was primarily caused by anxiety and mistrust that I felt before sleep, and the heavy sedation of my sleeping meds. I found that the more assertive I am becoming in my actions, both while dreaming and awake, have lessened the fear that I used to feel during sleep paralysis episodes. My apologies for how clinical this sounds, but I'm also using this as a record for possible medication changes to discuss with my doctor. Story 2 by Reddit user Nova9XX. Why do some people see demons but others don't? I see a lot of people here are saying they've experienced sleep paralysis but have never seen an entity. Other people are sharing stories of multiple different entities visiting them each time. How can this be? In my one and only sleep paralysis event 4 years ago, I saw the most vivid, horrific-looking entity I've ever seen. It wasn't even like anything I've seen in the movies. I am not religious, and at the time, I wasn't even spiritual at all. I'm very skeptical of stuff like that. Upon waking up, I was pretty damn sure it was just a hallucination. But as the years go on, I'm starting to feel weird about it and question myself. Does a hypnagogic state allow for people to overlap with a space that science has a hard time measuring right now? My God, it felt so real, and I will never forget it. It was like a mix of Slender Man, alien, and demon. Tall, spindly, with a large head and giant teeth and dark, almost absent eyes. The most unsettling thing to me was its skin. The best way I can describe it is like an old-fashioned TV static. It was mottled grey or something. It walked in through the doorway of my room and over to the side of my bed, where it slowly leaned down to put its face next to mine. Most awful feeling I've ever had in my sleep. I don't remember how it stopped or how I woke up, but when I did, I was in a panic. It was not just a nightmare. I can always handle nightmares. I feel detached from them and I feel like I'm somewhere else. During that sleep paralysis, I couldn't move to get away, and I was acutely aware of my exact position in bed. Now, I get a very particular feeling when I see things that slightly remind me of that entity. It's like a strong revulsion, discomfort, or terror. Like I could throw up from wanting nothing to do with it. Before I continue to the next story, I just want to say a big thank you for choosing to watch this video, and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you are, please go ahead and hit the like button to this video, and if you don't already, subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Thanks again. Story 3 by Reddit user GolfNerd24. I have been dealing with sleep paralysis for 13 years straight. I'm 23, experiencing different intensity levels nightly. Most nights are less severe, where I sense myself lock up but snap out of it immediately. Others, I am more severe, where it's too intense to move anything but my eyes, and I cannot breathe. About once a month it gets worse. That's when I start to not only hear, but feel the deafening rumble like a horror movie pre-jump scare. That's when something makes a presence, both physically and visually. Although I've never actually been harmed, I have seen beings of different sorts, depending where I am sleeping, approach me, or just be right in my face when sleep paralysis begins. It all began when I was 10, living in a beautiful valley in Pennsylvania, and there happened to be a gorgeous cemetery down the lane. It had the most beautiful views. So daily, my mum and dad, friends of mine, or just myself, went on the walk. It was never a fear of mine being in a cemetery, as I was extremely respectful of my environment. One night, about a year after first walking the cemetery, sleep paralysis started. I didn't know how to tell my parents what happened and what I saw, and it resulted in me not sleeping for about 3 nights. After telling them 5 or so years later, when I was no longer embarrassed of thinking something was wrong with me, we asked for professional help. Every single doctor and specialist has told me that I will grow out of it. Well, here I am. I have researched every single method of stopping or limiting sleep paralysis, and nothing has worked. I have begun taking this issue very seriously, practicing meditation every night and most mornings. Trust me, nothing works. Yes, I've tried smoking before bed, melatonin, no phone. I don't have social media nor check my phone often. I just made this account. Has anyone else dealt with the same issue? It has also brought me pure joy. My grandmother, the most amazing woman to grace this beautiful earth, took my sleep paralysis very seriously. She has never referred to sleep paralysis as its actual name, instead calling it your troubles. She had a beautiful calming sense about her, and I try to carry that simplicity into my troubles. A little over a year ago, she passed away at 87 and lived the most perfect life. On the evening of her passing, I was one of the last people she had contact with before she took her last breath. When I was able to fall asleep, I began meditation. It truly made me happy that night. About an hour or so into my sleep, I knew I was being sent into sleep paralysis, but it was different. I didn't lock up. I was weightless. I saw a faint white circle in my closet across the bed, and a figure inside. Slowly, it grew larger and larger until I saw my grandmother approach me, saying that she had just passed and everything was okay. She apologized for interfering with my troubles, but she had to say that she was safe and happy. My dad called me in the morning to tell me the news, and I replied, I know. He wasn't fazed, as I've always had visions and experiences of future and present events. My sweet grandmother visits me just about once a month in a vivid dream, just communicating to tell everyone she says hello, and she loves each and every single one of us, and she guides us through our toughest days. I love you, Grandma. If there are any questions with my experiences, seeings, feelings, etc., don't hesitate to reach out. This has been a long battle with a game I cannot win. Any advice would be so greatly appreciated. Thank you. Story 4 by Reddit user It's Karuro. Today, I had sleep paralysis from a sleep session during 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. I'm afraid of being in a dream, falling asleep again, and I know I have a sudden terror of dark and unsettling images and audio. I was already dreaming, and I was in a room. It kind of resembles my own room, but it was in grayscale. Only the surfaces of the room, and partially see-through. Outside of the room, there was nothing except a dark light at the bottom and a grey light on the top, contrasting each other. At one point, I see my uncle's dog chasing my grandma's cat. Nothing too weird, it happens often and it's funny. I try to stop the dog. He's small, counting the years he's knee tall, to play with him a bit, when he jumps on me and makes me trip over. The dog screams a loud noise in my ear. At this point, I can't see anything. I can't really describe the noise. It's something I recall hearing. It's like a noise that can be made by the ear. It wasn't tetanus. It sounded close too, and like a noise you could hear when making a big physical effort, like clenching your jaw a lot. I try pushing him, but he doesn't go away. He screams as if he had something against me, as if he was determined to make my ear explode. And the weirdest of all, only and exclusively my left ear. I scream at him, but I feel like my vocal cords are getting physically suppressed and no noise comes out of me. Now, I get angry and very scared, and I have this impulse to shove a finger in the poor thing's mouth because it really seemed like there wasn't any choice. That didn't help at all, and he kept on screaming. Now, the paralysis kicks in. Whenever I try to move something, I feel this extreme sense of numbness, while the damn dog won't stop. After a bit, I make one last desperate attempt at moving, and I succeed. I try opening my eyes, and as soon as I do, boom, the dog is gone. The noise is gone. It's 9:30 in the morning, 10 now, and I have this sudden terror of anything I see in the size of my field of view, of dark. Stopped having any fear at 12 or so, and accidentally seeing scary, unsettling images. I tried to add a photo of a dog like him, but I couldn't press on images because I was afraid. I said never mind, and I didn't find the dog anyways. I also am afraid to look for what might have happened, because articles usually have mildly spooky images when it comes to dream scariness. My left ear feels slightly different from my right one, but I think and hope it's all in my head. What happened? Is it going to happen again? Can I go to sleep again? I am very tired. Story 5. By Reddit user Little Turtle Dove. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I was always feeling scared at night, but always unsure why. One night, I was watching a movie. I believe it was Madeline, or a movie with orphans and a nun for children. In the movie, the nun told all the children to sleep on their back with their arms crossed to protect them from any kind of harm. That night, I fell asleep in the spare room attic with my mother, and I felt something was off, so I asked her if she would stay there and wake me up in the morning before she leaves. She said yes, and after a while of her consoling me, I fell asleep, and she left right away. I remember gaining consciousness and feeling paralyzed from head to toe. I was on my back with my arms crossed like I was being laid to rest. I heard strange huffing and puffing like a buffalo, cackling footsteps in a distance coming towards the king-size bed. Then I felt an animal of some sort sniffing my feet, and then sniffing their way up to my legs, snorting and growling against my body. I opened my eyes only for a split second, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I saw a snorting and growling red-tinted hairy man with horns and an inhuman face. I instantly closed my eyes in fear and prayed for it to be over. The scariest thing about him was he didn't have hands, he had hooves. I opened my eyes for one last split second and all I can remember are the hooves beating at me. I remember being choked and punched and slapped and scratched. I remember praying for God. And then I remember seeing all white, and it felt like I was floating down somewhere. Suddenly, I woke up at the bottom of the stairs, away from the attic. As soon as I gained full consciousness of my body and mind, I ran. When I ran, it felt so slow, like I couldn't get back to my parents soon enough. My parents found me with scratches and bruises all over my body. Their only conclusion was that maybe I'd done it to myself. Years later, I did some research. I see that others have had similar experiences. But why us? Why me? I've never had a night of full sleep that I felt safe. It happened almost 10 years ago. I loved playing with Barbies, dress-up, chalk, riding my purple bike. All the things I loved to do before my innocence got taken away from me in one dream. I was never the same after that. I feel scared always. I felt like a victim of assault. I'm always scared he'll come back. Story 6. By Reddit user A Flawed Meme. So I have experienced some things I haven't experienced before. I have debated whether or not to call it sleep paralysis or not, and it may be something fitting here, but I don't know. It just reminds me of sleep paralysis stories. It's just weird, scary, and bizarre, especially because of my most recent incident. This happened 3 times, 2 on October 6 and 1 today. October 6. I had a really bad day. The details are practically irrelevant, but I pretty much was in a very bad mood that day and tried to douse the mental pain by forcing myself to sleep. If I woke up, I simply slept again. This happened about 1 or 2 times, until I woke up for the last time at around 6 or 7 p.m., although not out of my own volition, but out of fear. It started when I woke up. I was sleeping with the left side of my shoulder facing towards the bed and the right side of my shoulder facing upward. This is what I wrote on Discord, irrelevant details removed. I did have slight drops of sleeping into unconsciousness, but there was this midpoint when I was realizing that maybe I calmed down. I was considering to turn on my phone and computer. Then I felt this thing while I was sleeping. My right shoulder felt this tingling compression. This something compressed me. I heard voices. It felt as if something was pushing me down. The most I can describe it is a tingling compression. I was slowly compressed, and it felt like a bizarre tingling sensation that slowly intensified as the voices intensified. I don't remember the first one. I don't remember at the time what the voices were, just that they were there. I couldn't move my shoulder, and although I thought on lifting my left arm, it just didn't register. It felt like I was too lazy to lift my arm. I did lift it, but it felt lazy. This sensation kind of terrified me. I felt like there was something there, and my willpower wanted out of this. It felt that real enough for my brain to want out. Then, the compression ended, and I could move a bit again. When it happened, I was surprised at what happened. I kind of questioned myself what happened. And I even wondered if I lifted my arm as hard as I could. Did I? I should have pushed it. However, I was still insistent on forcing myself to sleep, so I tried to go to sleep. But it happened again. According to what I wrote about this, the compression was a lot more intense, and I remember hearing a female voice, increasingly getting louder, screaming, in my right ear. This time, I tested if I could move my left arm. I couldn't. I was stuck. It was written as lasting more or less longer before it stopped. I woke up, and I was too scared to try sleeping again, and I calmed down. Now, there are 2 things I want to say. 1. I came up with rationalizations for what happened, one of which was that what happened to me was due to me not being in the right frame of mind. There's still the possibility, but I never experienced this before. 2. It has been 6 days since this happened, and as time passed, my memory of the event is really dull to the point where I can't remember the exact feelings of shock and horror I felt that night. If it weren't for me writing it down, I'd probably doubt it was that extreme. October 12th. Now this was weird. I woke up in the middle of the night due to not having a good sleeping rhythm. I generally don't have a good one. I was wide awake, maybe able to move my limbs or so. I don't remember. I decided to sleep and close my eyes, but while I was doing that, I was thinking about that night. In fact, I didn't stop thinking about it. I was thinking about how if it were to happen again, I'd know. Not that I know, but I remember using some dream document or saying from when I was asleep. I don't know. Maybe I was still in my dream element, but I was awake and trying to sleep at the time. Then, I felt stuff. I felt very, very slight tugs, as if someone was lightly trying to wake me up. But at the same time, I also believed I imagined it due to me thinking about the night. I was basically, is that a tug? Nah, it could just be my imagination. But I thought that to myself as if to say, you need to try harder if you want to prove yourself. I was, in a way, taunting it, and it did respond, that they simply were too light to be something I can say is weird. For all I know, I could just be imagining it. Maybe it's the wind. This happened several times before after I taunted it. The compression started. It was beginning to start. I was feeling the tingling compression, slowly compressing me. I noticed this though, and before it could continue, I opened my eyes and it stopped. I didn't sleep that night. This is kind of why I hesitate on calling it a sleep paralysis or something. I have never experienced it before, but this doesn't sound like the stories I bothered to read. Maybe I haven't read enough. But the fact that I felt it as if I invoked it on my 3rd time has me asking myself. I post this here to see if you guys have any thoughts or opinions. I'm new to this, after all. Story 7. By Reddit user DreamRag. I have experienced sleep paralysis numerous times over the years. I have experienced entities, 3 different female entities, vivid and clear during sleep paralysis experiences. I have never experienced or read or heard of anyone experiencing what I believe was an attempt of possession during one of my sleep paralysis experiences. I'll try to keep this short. Precursor. During an ayahuasca ceremony, I had what I call a similar experience, though it actually wasn't. Some may say that DMT creates an awakened dream state, the ripping of the fabric between what we call awake and dream realities. Deep into the ceremony, some entity or energy communicated with me. That's another story. I communicated that it wanted to feel what it was like to be in a body. We switched. I mention this because I had a similar feeling during this particular sleep paralysis experience. Here's the short of it. While in the paralysis, I feel a very heavy pressure on my chest, pushing me down into the bed. My eyes are open. Obviously, I can't move. I can move my eyes. Straining my eyes as far left as I can, I am able to see my wife sleeping. I try to scream my wife's name. I can hear my own screams in my head, typical for a sleep paralysis experience. Unlike the other sleep paralysis experiences, something felt wrong. This was lasting longer than the other sleep paralysis experiences. What happened next was pure terror. I felt the pressure on my chest move. I saw the covers move, as if there was something under the sheet that wasn't me. What happened next I will never forget. It was the most terrifying sleep paralysis dream experience I've ever had or could imagine. The covers were moving as if something was moving up my body, coming toward my face. The covers were resting at my neck. Whatever it was lifted the covers. I saw the darkness under the covers. Nothing was there. Until it was. I was staring at the darkness under the covers, hoping I would fully awake soon. I was struggling to move my head, struggling to move any part of my body. With no warning, a mist appeared right in front of my face and began trying to force its way into my mouth. My mouth was clinched shut. This mist was trying to force open my mouth, and it was working. I could not keep my lips pursed strongly enough. This mist opened my lips. I felt it entering my body. I was screaming in my head, trying to keep my lips closed as this mist attempted to possess me. That's the only explanation I have. I finally regained control over my body, and the mist disappeared. I know some of that mist had gotten in. I felt it. I knew it was only a small portion, as I was able to see the bulk of the mist around my face as it was attacking me. When I snapped out of the paralysis, all the feelings and the mist went away. I think it can go without saying that I did not get back to sleep. I laid there reliving it, thinking about all those feelings, feeling that mist, whatever it was, eagerly trying to take me. One thought was that the energy or entity that I met during the ayahuasca ceremony found a way back and wanted to experience a body again. Other than that, I have no clue what it may have been. I know this sounds incredible, impossible, imaginatively created in a drowsy state. I know if I was reading this, I would probably be thinking, yeah, right. I assure you, this was my experience. My guess is that it was simply a dream state. From my experiences, having participated in several ayahuasca ceremonies over the years, I feel that ayahuasca can induce an awakened dream state, meaning we are caught between two conscious realities. This experience may simply be what sleep paralysis is, being caught in between two conscious between states. All I know is that I don't know what was going on. I'm just trying to understand how all this works. I have several theories based on my studies. I'll spare you. Has anyone ever had a similar experience? Story 8 by Reddit user Severed Resonance. So far, I've only had one experience, and it was truly terrifying. This happened last year, 2019, in February. Before her passing, I had a great-grandmother who I sat with a few days a week because she was too old to take care of herself. My family and I took turns every other day sitting with her, and this Saturdays and Tuesdays were my days. My granny did nothing but eat and sleep, and mostly she slept on her favourite spot on the couch. I feel it's important to mention her husband died in that house due to an illness. I was a newborn at the time, so I never really knew him, or knew what his voice sounded like. One Saturday morning, I decided to take a nap on the couch. I always got to my granny's house at 5 a.m. every time it was my day to sit with her, and she had fallen asleep on the couch, so I thought, hey, why not? I really regret sleeping in that house that day, and I never did again after this. I slept for maybe 40 minutes. I slept with my blanket over my entire body, even my face because it was February and it was cold. When I woke up from my nap, I couldn't move. I was curled up on my side with a blanket over me, and I couldn't move a muscle. My eyes were open, and all I could do was blink. I started to feel sweaty after a while. I assumed because I was nervous and scared. I couldn't speak or move, only blink. Then suddenly, all I could hear was a tiny whisper from across the room get louder and louder, coming toward me. There was no way it belonged to my granny, as she was asleep, and the voice range was nowhere near the same. The voice got louder and louder until it was in my ear, as if hovering over me. I'm so glad I fell asleep with my entire blanket over my face, because if the voice was this terrifying, I'm sure the face of whatever it was over me would have made me pass out. It was yelling so loud in my ear for what felt like forever, but I'm sure in actuality it was probably 5 minutes or so. Those 5 minutes felt like forever. I wanted to cry. The voice sounded so loud and scratchy, like something out of a horror movie. During her yelling, I felt my shoulder being poked at, and eventually, poking spot began to feel hot, like the hallucination was so intense it felt like I was being burned. She screamed a lot of nonsense in my ear, and she sounded so frustrated and angry. Meanwhile, I was terrified. All I could do was stare into the darkness underneath my blanket. My eyes widened in terror. I felt myself sweating down my face. Eventually, the screaming stopped, and the woman went away. But I still couldn't move for a bit longer. After I finally gained control of my muscles, I decided not to move on my own free will. I was scared. I was too scared to leave the couch and even remove the blanket from my face. I heard the house phone ring a few times. I must have missed maybe 4 calls or more. I still don't know what induced that paralysis or why I experienced a screaming woman. I always figured it was due to my horrible sleep pattern, my mental illness, or due to the fact that a relative died in the home where I experienced my sleep paralysis. It could literally be anything. All I know is, I never want to experience that ever again. Story 9. By Reddit user Midnight Sigh. Sleep paralysis is one of those things that most people will shrug off because you're dreaming, but I firmly believe that that isn't necessarily the case. Before I tell my story, I want to point out that I know the functionality of sleep paralysis. Your body is essentially paralytic in its dream state so that you do not act out on your dreams and keeps you safe from hurting yourself. Unfortunately, sometimes your brain doesn't wake up at the same time your body does, so oftentimes you'll find yourself lying there unable to move while your body awakens. It's extremely distressing at times and can feel very otherworldly, especially if you are accompanied by that falling sensation or some shadowy figure during the event. I have had sleep paralysis before on occasions when I am still dreaming. My eyes will be closed, and I will be in the process of reawakening. I will know it isn't real because once my eyes shoot open, I will be able to move. There was one day, though, I will never forget, and I was absolutely, with 100% certainty, not asleep. I became pregnant at 18, and I was living with my great-grandfather and his daughter, caretaker, my great-aunt, because I wanted to be close to my boyfriend, now husband, to prepare for our child's arrival. Any other relative was too far away. I did not want to be there because of how haunted this place is. Now, I am a veteran when it comes to paranormal activity. I have experienced so much, it doesn't tend to bother me. But I had to sleep with the lights on there. One night, I was having an especially hard time sleeping. I was tossing and turning, about 5 or 6 months pregnant and uncomfortable. I had to sleep on my left side or else I would vomit. Now normally this wouldn't be a problem, but my bed was against the wall in the corner. Sleeping on my left side meant my back was turned to the rest of the room, something that in this particular house made me extremely uncomfortable. If I simply put my head at the foot of the bed to accommodate this, then I'd be too close to the only plug in the room where I had to keep the space heater, which had a laughably short cord. We had no heat in winter, and it would burn my face or head. So, I had no other option. I was awake. I know I was because again the lights were on and I was having trouble sleeping. I was lying there, angry, and I still wasn't asleep and dreading my busy day at the doctor's office 40 minutes away in the morning. Suddenly, again, still completely awake, my body went to sleep, as if it were preparing itself for me to dream. But I was still 100% conscious. So I am sat there staring at the wall, unable to move, and all of a sudden, I get this intense feeling that something has entered the room. I am unable to turn around to see what it is. I can't even open my mouth. It's important to note that I slept with my door locked at night. Again, this place is unbelievably haunted. So I'm paralyzed. Something's behind me, and then I feel it. It feels like a gigantic and extremely heavy hand starts stroking my hair. It's so heavy, it's pushing my head down into my pillow with every stroke, and I feel so utterly terrified It wasn't a mean or malicious gesture to stroke my hair, no, but the absolutely sick feeling I got in my gut was enough to know that this thing wasn't being sweet. This was probably one of the single most terrifying encounters I've had, because I assure you, I absolutely had not even been to sleep yet. And I hadn't drifted off or anything. I was lying there, with my eyes open, and it all happened within a span of about 15 seconds. Thank you for watching and or listening to this video. Again, if you enjoyed my narration, please hit that like button, and if you don't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you thought of these stories in the comment sections below, and check out the links to the original posts in the video description. I know a lot of the people who wrote these posts are actually looking for answers, so please click on the links and provide any answers you may have via Reddit. If you have a story you would like me to narrate on this channel, please email me at mrsinisterstories@gmail.com. If you want to support me even further, please consider purchasing something from my Teespring store, or leaving me a tip via my PayPal, which I'll put a link to in the description below. Thanks again for watching.